On today's episode of the Duck Zone 503 podcast, I give you 5 storylines to watch for heading into Spring Ball 2023. I'm your host, Dominic Peterson. This is the Duck Zone 503 podcast where we talk all things Oregon football. Whether it's your first time viewing or long time viewing, kindly ask that you hit that like and subscribe button down below. But most importantly, guys, telling your friends and family about the podcast is what helps grow this podcast the fastest. I really appreciate everybody who's locked in here on YouTube and all of our social medias at DuckZone503 on Instagram and Twitter. Really appreciate everybody, and go Ducks. Without a doubt, let's go ahead and get into today's episode for you. I got 5 storylines to watch for heading into Spring Ball 2023. As you know, the spring practices have officially kicked off. At the point of this recording, they've done 3 spring practices. I think by the time this is out, they'll be having 4 spring practices done. The Oregon spring game is April 29th. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. I'll see you guys there. No doubt. As you know, Dan Lanning restored some buzz around the program that hasn't really, realistically, hasn't been here since 2014. I mean, Oregon had a period there from about 2015 to about 2019, a good 4-year period where they're pretty mediocre. I mean, they were not as good as they were back in when they had the Chip Kelly era and stuff like that. And they kind of fell off a little bit after the Mark Helfrich era, but without a doubt, they went through some coaching turnover, got Lanning back, and the hype was back this year. Lanning's team racked up 500 plus yards per game and averaged about almost 40 points per game at 38.8, right? That's cusping 40 points per game. And that's damn good. That's the most points the Ducks team has scored since 2015. While the defense did struggle the most and there was a lot of hype in the year prior coming into the last year, on the defensive side, they did struggle. Lanning also, though, made a splash on the recruiting trail, signing the nation's number 8 recruiting class in 2023 according to the 247 Sports Composite rankings. So Lanning proving he can get it done on the field. He's proven, he can recruit as well in year one. And these are things that we knew about Lanning coming into the program that we expected him to do pretty well, and he's fulfilling that promise. Overall, last year, it was a great season, but like the Cristobal era, this last season could have felt better, with these last few late seasons losses to Oregon State and Washington, your rivals. You always want to beat your rivals first and foremost, and then to have them late in the season like that when you're cusping college football playoff talk. Feels like we do this all the time as Duck fans. We get right there and we're about 3-4 games away from going undefeated, in Stanford, Utah. It's always one of these teams, man, that knock us off. And this year it just happened to be the teams that we hate most, the Beavers in Washington, right? And that stings within itself, having them, basically spoil your season like that and make you go to the Holiday Bowl out of the Pac-12 championship. That's just tough. A tough way to end your season. But never the doubt, I mean, you had a double-digit win season. You got to go on the biggest stage and play Georgia now, and you got your ass kicked against Georgia. Excuse my language, but I mean, you just did. 49-3 was not a good showing, but hey, you got the opportunity in year one, day one as a coach to feel out what you want as a team, to feel out what a national championship team looks like. I mean, he just came from that team, so of course he knows what it looks like. And to get your players to see what it looks like, right? And to build on from there. Now we enter year 2. We're going into spring ball, so we got to look at these 5 storylines here heading into spring ball 2023. So for number 1, I got, what does the Will Stein offense look like? So former offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham jumps to Arizona State, becoming the youngest head coach in the FBS. Oregon hires a new offensive coordinator, Will Stein, another young guy, kind of fits the regiment. Former UTSA offensive coordinator. He spent 3 seasons there doing a couple different things. He was a former quarterback at Louisville. As recently as 2019, he was the offensive coordinator for Lake Travis High School, powerhouse high school out there in Texas. Texas high school ball is no joke, as you know. He spent the 2020 and 2021 coaching wide receivers for UTSA. Then he got promoted to the offensive coordinator a year ago. The Roadrunners ranked 9th nationally in total offense, 12th in scoring, and 12th in passing. So this guy took a school that's not really a power at all. Like, You think of Texas schools, you think of Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies, right? These bigger schools. He took UTSA to double-digit wins and have a offense that could move it, let me tell you. So if he can bring that here to Oregon with the weapons that Oregon has, that is going to be absolutely huge. You know, Stein should be stepping into a good situation here at Oregon. The Ducks bring back their starting quarterback, they bring back their leading rusher, their top 2 receivers from last season. So this is going to be big. This is going to be a plug and play type deal. Stein can really connect with these guys the way Kenny Dillingham did and made this offense something that we didn't really see coming. I mean, a top 10 offense in the country. That would be big time. I think that this Oregon offense this year is even better than last year's, given more chemistry, a little couple more pieces added. Now they did lose a couple guys, but they has the potential to do really well. A year ago, I had some major questions about the offense, right? And Dillingham was able to develop this offense into something special, you know. So very interested to see and watch Will Stein not only continue that success that Dillingham had, but to also expand on it as well. You know, although Oregon's offense was really good last season, I definitely feel they can still take one more step. I mean, Bo Nix last year in college here, you return your guys, your leading wide receiver, leading running back. Of course, you got to do some things about the offensive line, but you bring in really good talent. We'll get into that here later in the video. I think this has a making to be a really good offense, no doubt. That goes ahead and leads us into the number 2 storyline heading into spring 2023, and that is transfer impacts. Yes, I want to be watching how these transfers perform. Last year, we seen transfer players like Bo Nix, Chase Cota, Christian Gonzalez just have absolutely big impacts on the field, right? And, you know, I'm just interested to watch this year's transfers, how big a role they're going to have on this team. And I kind of predict that a lot of these guys that they got, that's what the transfer portal is kind of for, is to get starting caliber players that you can kind of plug and play. And almost said Lillard. I'm wearing my Damian Lillard shirt. Lanning. He did a really good job of getting, you know, really quality transfers on this team. I mean, just imagine if the Ducks didn't have Christian Gonzalez or Bo Nix, right? It would have been a little bit of a complete different season. So Lanning was able to land those guys, and they landed a whole bunch of other guys here that we'll talk about. The Ducks experienced some major turnover on the roster this offseason between recruiting classes and incoming groups of transfers, right? So at the top of the list to watch for is Jordan Burch, right? Former 5-star defensive end from South Carolina. Jordan Burch is a wrecking ball on the edge there. We lose DJ Johnson. After losing Kayvon Thibodeau, I mean, Oregon, even with Kayvon Thibodeau, is kind of average at getting to the quarterback. They weren't even really elite with Kayvon Thibodeau. They lose Kayvon Thibodeau, and Oregon was absolutely awful. I mean, we have to go back into the 80s with how bad Oregon was at getting to the quarterback last year. I mean, they just simply didn't get to the quarterback, and that kind of hurt the defense as a whole. You know, they couldn't get to the quarterback, and quarterbacks were passing all over them. This year, you look at the Pac-12, how many quarterbacks there is for each team. I mean, you have got to get to the quarterback this year if you want to win the Pac-12. You want to win the conference. Well, there's multiple first-round pick quarterbacks in this conference, and adding a guy like Jordan Burch will be huge for the Ducks. Wide receiver Trayshawn Holden from Alabama is big time. You know, we lost a guy like Dante Thornton. You lose a guy like Chase Cota out there at wide receiver. You bring a playmaker like Trayshawn Holden in. There was a little bit of drama at the beginning of his career here, and he was dismissed off the team momentarily. But after further evidence came out and further stories, investigation went on, he was allowed back onto the team. And I think that's just the right thing to do. I mean, if the investigation goes down and the law is the law, it says you're innocent, then there's no reason why you should be off the team, right? So he comes back on. Hopefully he could do some big things at wide receiver for the Ducks. And last but not least, we got offensive tackle Johnny Cornelius adding onto that offensive line. 4 out of 5 starters for the Ducks up front are gone. They really played really well, those guys. So adding a guy, number 1, JUCO guy coming out of Rhode Island, Johnny Cornelius coming in is going to be big. And then you add linebacker Justin Jacobs as well. So Noah Sewell and Justin Flo, they were both 5 stars out of high school, number 1 and 2. Really a lot of hype around these guys. And with Justin Flo, had a lot of injury, didn't really get the opportunity that to show what he can do. Now, I do think he's a great player. I think that injuries did have a lot to do with how he played here at Oregon. I think if he gets the chance at Arizona, he'll do some great things. And as far as Noah Sewell goes, I just think that Sewell is a great athletic linebacker, but he's not the exact linebacker that Lanning's looking for. Lanning's looking for a guy that can cover in space in the pass game, as well as fast, shifty linebackers that can use their speed to get to the quarterback. We'll just say like this: Sewell is a bruiser, man. He's big, he's muscular, and he's your Ray Lewis type linebacker, right? Lanning's not really looking for a guy like that. He gets a guy that's actually looking for Justin Jacobs, who played at Iowa. Former Iowa linebacker, had a big time freshman season and then got injured the last year. Didn't really play much last year. So coming off an injury, we're going to see how he plays. Number 3 here, going into my storyline number 3 is how is Bo Nix handling the Heisman hype? Okay, so as you know, a year ago at this time, Bo Nix wasn't sure he would even start for the Ducks. I mean, if we're being real here, there was a lot of debate between Duck fans about Ty Thompson, Bo Nix, who should start. And we were wondering who was going to be, right? Well, Nix came into Oregon after a disappointing sophomore and junior season at Auburn. You know, we saw the former 5-star kind of struggle. He only threw for 23 touchdowns in 21 games. And that's not that impressive, especially if you're a 5-star expected to be this big time quarterback, right? Has family ties to Auburn as well, so that probably put a lot of pressure on his back. Comes to Oregon out west where he doesn't know anybody, and it's just a brand new, fresh start for him to step in and do his thing. Last season, Nix threw for 29 touchdowns and added 15 more of that on the ground, thrusting him into Heisman conversation before he got hurt late in the season in that Washington game. And then his numbers started to dip, and late in the season, he kind of just wasn't in that conversation anymore. But without a doubt, he had the Ducks right there in the college football playoff talk. He was performing very, very well. And Nix is returning as one of the most hyped quarterbacks in the nation. He's tied for the 4th best odds to win the 2023 Heisman Trophy, according to Athlon Sports. So no doubt he's already in the conversation. Can he add to his career year he had last year? I mean, what more can you do if you're Bo Nix besides not get hurt, right? For this next season. He came back. I think he wants to win. I think he wants to end the season on a better note than he did. I think he really loves Oregon. He's married to a wife. And if he can just keep his head where it needs to be, and I think it is, he's a smart guy, very soft-spoken, very focused on what he needs to do, not now out here getting in trouble. I think he's going to have a big-time season this year. Okay, and then what else do we got here? So that was number 1. Number 2, we got how does Bo Nix? Okay, number 4 here. Number 4, new offensive line. We got a new offensive line, guys. So the biggest question mark, no doubt, for the Oregon Ducks coming into this 2023 season is whether or not this offensive line can produce to a similar level they did last season, right? The Ducks lost 4 out of 5 starters from this 2022 squad, and they were absolutely elite. I think through like 9 games, don't quote me on this, I think through 9 games, they only allowed 1 sack. I mean, that's just unheard of. And that's why you've seen the guy like Adrian Clem go to the Patriots, go ahead and coach under a Hall of Fame coach under Bill Belichick, right? That's if you get guys, Hall of Fame coaches from the NFL wanting your guys, you know you're doing something right. So you've seen that. You're seeing 4 out of 5 starters leave from the group. So this is a complete overhaul that Lanny is going to have to deal with. I mean, from the coaching and personnel standpoint, right? The Josh Connolly versus a Johnny Cornelius battle will definitely be very fun to watch on the line. As you know, Johnny Cornelius is the #1 rated JUCO offensive tackle that we landed in the transfer portal. Josh Connolly, on the other hand, is the highest rated offensive tackle to ever sign with the Ducks. #1 listed offensive tackle in the 2022 class. Had a minor role on last year's team, made a few appearances, but now he's coming into year 2 now. And you know what that means. That's a year of development, a year of weightlifting under the college regiment, a year of dieting, getting her body right, getting adapted to the college life, you know, making that jump. And now he's in year 2. He's more comfortable. He's getting more developed. I know he lost his coach, who he committed to, but I believe in who he brought in. And that's going to be big, man. Alik Terry, this new OC guy that we have, paired with Mike Cavanaugh, a veteran assistant line coach who has skin in the game for over 30 years. Pairing those guys together is going to be really good for these guys. You know, and another thing I'm going to be watching is how does Jackson Powers Johnson do at center? Okay, Alex Forsyth was huge. You know, losing him is going to be big for the Ducks. That guy was an absolute dominant center. Called all the shots. Center's one of probably the most important position on the offensive line. They see everything. They tell the offensive lineman what they're doing before the snap. And I'm just going to be watching how well does Jackson, Powers Johnson, and Bo Nix play together. How does that center and quarterback relationship look like? Because as we know in football, that is huge. I mean, those guys got to be on the same page at all times if this offense wants to run smoothly as it did last year. All right, here we go. So, and then we got to number 5. We got, is that number 5? How many points do I got here? Sorry, do we got 5 or do we have 6 points? Accidentally. So we got the Will Stein offense, transfer impacts. How's Nick's handling the thing, and the new offensive line for number 4. Okay, number 5. We either got backup quarterback development, or we'll do what steps up. Who steps up in the secondary? Which one should we do? Which one should we do, guys? We already kind of talked about Bo Nix and the quarterbacks a little bit. Let's talk about who steps up in the secondary. Sorry, guys. For some reason, I had 6 points on here. I mean, we could do 6, but I already have 5. I already labeled the video as 5, so we're going to stick with 5. 5. Who steps up in the secondary this year? Okay, this is a big one. Last year, the secondary really struggled. And yes, that definitely had something to do with how bad, historically bad, the front 7 played. I mean, they just were not getting to the quarterback. And I mean, let's just praise the Lord. At least we were able to get a guy in Christian Gonzalez on the team that Lanning was able to get through the transfer portal last year. That's now going to be a first-round pick in the NFL coming up here in the draft. So the question is, who steps up, right? So Oregon returns Triquez Bridges. He's the lone returning starter here. We got Dante Manning, the highest rated corner to ever sign with Oregon. But, we really just haven't seen much from him. We haven't seen that 5-star level play from Dante Manning. Is this the year that we'll see that? Bringing in a 4-star freshman like Dalen Austin might help. You also have Alabama transfer Kyrie Jackson that's in the mix. He got a little bit of play time at Alabama, but he doesn't really have a lot of experience, so we don't really know what we're going to get from him. He could definitely step up, though. And could we see an underclassman take over a bigger role? I mean, Jaleel Florence definitely got a lot of play time last year as a freshman. Does he develop into something special? Jaleel Tucker, Kamari Terrell. I mean, these are all guys from the 2022 class that could definitely step up in year 2. So a lot to watch for in the secondary. They're going to need a leader. They're definitely going to need that leader like Christian Gonzalez was for them last year. The Ducks were able to kind of, lock up whoever the best receiver is for the other team, and they just have to beat the other guys. The Ducks don't have the luxury that year. If the other team has an elite wide receiver and one of these guys does not step up to be at least a top 3 pick in the NFL, I mean, the Ducks are going to need somebody like that in the secondary. They might have a tough time. Even if let's say the front 7 upgrades just a little bit. Jordan Burch is able to add a couple more sacks than DJ Johnson was last year. And let's say the front 7 and the linebackers get to the quarterback a couple more times. That's great. But if you don't have a secondary or a leader back there that somebody fears, that quarterbacks don't want to throw to, especially in this conference, man, with the quarterbacks that these other teams have, we are going to get lit up. So that's one of the most important points, man, is finding a leader in that secondary for sure. Without a doubt, guys, sorry a little bit for the unorganization a little bit. I added 6 points here. Meant to add just 5, but without a doubt, we got 5 in. I appreciate everybody for tuning in once again. I'm your host, Dominic Peterson. This is the Duck Zone 503 podcast where we talk all things Oregon football. Again, guys, if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button down below. As always, go Ducks. And we'll continue our spring previews on the channel. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to tune in. Hit that bell for notifications. Go Ducks, guys. See you in the next one.